As an entrepreneur, I've learned a few things about being successful. So I put together 5 truths that I wish I would have known much earlier in life. A few of these have ended up costing me millions of dollars of net worth. Number 1, don't discount opportunity over one thing. When I was in college, there was this food place right across the street owned by a guy named Steve Ellis. You would walk in and go down this line, and all of the ingredients would be right there. And Steve or someone else would make your food right in front of you. Now, at the time, that was pretty revolutionary as there were no other restaurants that were doing this. And the place had this cool sounding name, Chipotle. It was packed all the time and became so successful that the owner was able to expand and open a second, and then a third, and then a fourth location. One day, I'm in the University Career Center, and there's a job posting for a new position titled Real Estate Manager at Chipotle. Since that was my degree, I sent in my resume and got called for an interview. I remember going to this kind of rundown building with a one-room workspace, and there were 4 desks in it. And these were not even nice desks. It's like they were thrift store chairs and steel plates for the tops, totally industrial looking. And it was in a part of the city that at the time was kind of sketchy. Anyway, I do the interview and get invited back to a second interview. When I show up, the guy I meet with says the position is mine if I want it. However, because they're a young company on a tight budget, they would not be able to pay a market competitive salary, and that some of the compensation would be in equity. Well, when I heard the salary, I remember thinking, no way. It was $10,000 less than what I was making working nights and weekends as a server. I thought about it for a few seconds and told the guy, thank you, but I will not be able to accept the position. I remember walking out of there thinking, what a waste of time. Fast forward about 3 years, and this other restaurant group you've probably heard of, called McDonald's, comes in and pays $50 million up front and injects another $340 million to grow Chipotle from 16 stores at the time to over 500 stores only 7 years later. Right after that, McDonald's spins it off as a private company, which then has an IPO at $22 a share. Today, there's over 3,500 Chipotles, and Steve Ellis, the guy who used to make my burritos, has a net worth of over $700 million. So, I don't know how much equity I could have negotiated from the job interview when Chipotle had 4 stores, but I can imagine it would have been worth 7 figures within a few years. The point of the story is this: don't discount opportunity over one thing. If I would not have declined the job offer on the spot and taken a few days to think about it and actually asked how much equity was involved, my life could have looked way different in my late 20s. Which brings me to invest more and be patient. I tell young people all the time, invest early and invest often, and then don't touch it. I've had multiple times in my life when I've owned a mutual fund or a stock that didn't seem to be performing, that I sold only to put the money back in my bank account and probably go buy lunch at Chipotle. Looking back, I wish I would have saved more, invested more, and then left everything right where it was, never thought about it again, and let it sit for a decade or two. Back in 2001, I bought $500 of this stock called Amazon. A guy at work was all excited and would not stop talking about it. I think I paid like 50 cents a share or something. I end up holding this stock for over a year and nothing happens. It's utterly flatlined, and I'm reading how the company's not making a profit. Anyway, I sell the stock and put the money back in my bank account. Let's fast forward to today, where the last time I checked, that $500 of 2001 Amazon stock would be worth, after stock splits, around $1.1 million. Ouch. The advice here is whatever you can afford to invest in stable, high-growth companies and then be patient, make it happen, especially considering this next decade could be one of the largest economic expansions in the history of the world because of AI and quantum computing. Which brings me to number 3, seek out and associate with successful people. In today's world, this is easy because most anyone can be found online. So don't hesitate to seek out and talk to, meet with, or ask for advice from people who have more experience and success than you. In my 20s and 30s, I had many opportunities to learn from and mentor with people who were accomplished business owners, and my time with them was invaluable as it accelerated my learning in so many ways. If there's something that intrigues you, that you are curious about, find someone who has done it. Reach out and ask if you can talk with them. In my experience, successful people are hardwired to want to help people who put in the effort to make themselves and their lives better. Which brings me to number 4, choose the best partners. If there's one thing that will make or break your overall success and your personal happiness, it's choosing to be with the right partner. This applies to business and relationships. Before you get into a legal partnership of any kind, including marriage, make sure you've spent adequate time with the other person and you have a deep sense of their personality traits and values. If there are yellow flags that show up in the beginning, they only become red flags and outright problems later in the relationship. I've had many business partners where I've had my hesitations early on, but decided to ignore them because of what the person brought to the table. 100% of the time, I've regretted the decision later. It might be a couple years down the road when I'm doing 70% of the work for a 50% split, or even worse, when instead of growing the company together, we're in a dispute of some kind. The right business or relationship partner can profoundly influence your happiness because they will supercharge your success or restrict your progress. Which brings me to number 5, keep things simple. Over the years, I've gotten myself in trouble when I've added complexity to things. Could be a business model, an agreement, a design, or a process. When you keep things simple, there are less moving parts, less things to break, less dependencies, and less variables. It seems counterintuitive, but many times the more complex you make something, the harder it becomes to manage. A great mentor told me, don't add something to a process or product that never needed to be there in the first place. Over time, it's human nature to make things more complicated. We have this need to always be adding on and improving, but the real skill is when you recognize and then remove something that is not providing value. This goes for business and life. Remove elements, steps, people, decision points, or whatever that is distracting from anything other than the core benefit of what is provided. And when you remove the things that no longer serve you, there's now space to focus on other things that actually provide a high return on investment. So many people think adding more options, more offers, more choices, or more features is making something better. But really, they're only adding more complexity to their lives and many times diminishing an outcome. The journey of entrepreneurship is filled with lessons that often come at a high cost, sometimes in missed opportunities, other times in painful experiences. These 5 truths are principles I wish I had known earlier in my career. While I can't go back and change the past, I can share these insights with you in the hope that they'll influence whatever path you're on and make you more insightful in the face of opportunity. Success many times isn't about accepting less or doing more. It's about making the best choices in light of all facts and then sticking with them. If you can internalize these principles, you're on your way to building a business and life that will be way more rewarding.